I believe it was around the time I was 14. And my dad would always be backstage with me. And he would ask me questions like, sure you practiced enough? Are you ready? Are you nervous? And it took me a while. It took me probably until about the age of 17. Like, I remember that era, I started getting nervous. And I was like, why am I doing that? Have I prepared enough? Sometimes I hadn't, and sometimes you make mistakes and it doesn't always go the way you want. And once I really started preparing, I was still getting nervous. And I thought, why is that? Because I'm doubting myself. I don't have confidence. And there's a reason why. For me, I love him, but it was my dad being backstage. And he was projecting his own anxiety onto me. And I didn't understand that when I was young. I couldn't grasp it. I just thought I had these feelings.
Well, of course, everybody likes to blame their mother, but I felt that this is really what I wanted to do right away. And my parents were a little bit horrified with how serious I was about it, because we grew up without any money, and they wanted me to have a good life and be a doctor or a lawyer, and they were afraid that I was getting too serious about music. And so they tried to discourage me from practicing, and they were always telling me that I was good, but I would never be good enough to really become a professional musician. I felt like I really had to show them that I was extraordinary, otherwise they wouldn't believe me. And I've spent many years working that through.
Parents are our first audience. They're the ones who've responded to us, who've always been there, who have sometimes been there, who've been unreliably there, or who have left. And so we've all been, for better or worse, handled by our parents to the best that they can do.
I have a very strict Korean mother, and she encouraged me to practice all the time, and there were a lot of fights when I was younger. There was some punishment involved if I didn't practice, which is not true for all households, but for mine it definitely was, and that's definitely painful to think about. I started playing my first competitions when I was 10, and the first competition I ever entered, I won first place. So that was kind of a cool experience, but the more I competed, I felt the pressure to win, especially from my parents' point of view. And I felt pretty pressured to do my best.
I know for me, because my family aren't musicians, really the only way that a lot of times they understand how well I'm doing is when it's something tangible like a competition. So if I win a competition, to them it's like, I think she's doing well.
If I was not able to perform up to my peak, I would hear that little voice in my head that I just would never be good enough, no matter how hard I tried. And it wasn't until I actually got accepted into the New York Philharmonic, and I called home, and my mother picked up the phone, and I told her, she broke down crying and said, "I'm so sorry, I tried to talk you out of it all these years." That was the moment when I finally got the approval from my mother that really meant something, to me. It was that she finally admitted that I really was good enough. So that meant a lot.
I think it's hard when you grow up in a family full of musicians, because everybody has their own baggage about getting out on stage. I started realizing I needed to count on myself and not worry about what it's like for somebody else's performance experience. I've got to find out what my performance experience is. So once I started focusing on that, I gained confidence. And I love it when my dad is around for my performances now, because I don't have to worry about whether I'm prepared. I know I am, so.
If I were to have children, I would definitely encourage them to practice, but I don't think that I would do it in the way my parents did it. I don't think my parents did it very well. I don't regret any of it. I definitely feel like all the practice that I put in paid off, but it was tough sometimes.
Whether you analyze it or not, it's there. And it's very painful to analyze, because no one wants to re-experience and go back and feel those feelings. But if people want to work in that way, it can go pretty deep and it's pretty profound. We bring our life history with us no matter what we do, and we're whole people, whether we identify as musicians or psychoanalysts or bankers or doctors or students. We're a whole person, and it's important to honor that whole person.